The People of Yarmouth County video series, made possible through the Department of Communities, Culture, and Heritage Forward Fund, focuses on our region of Yarmouth County and some of the communities and cultural identities that encompass it. We wanted to showcase one of the most important part of your community, our people. The stories told in our 6-part video series are excerpts from longer interviews conducted by the Yarmouth County Museum and Archives staff. They are stories of both the past and the present. They are memories told by the people of Yarmouth County. Some of the stories are funny, some are sad, and some will make you think. On behalf of the Yarmouth County Museum and Archives, we'd like to say a very special thank you to all the participants who took part in this project. We loved hearing your stories.
Well, I'm from East Kemp, Nova Scotia. Was born in West Kemp. It's 1926. Well, I don't know. I guess we start at the bottom. I was the 12th child of 14. I'm the only one living. We were considered poor, but we never went cold or never went hungry. My first job was in a sawmill. 10 cents an hour. We worked 10-hour days. We worked 9 hours on Saturday, which would give you $5.90 a week. And at that time, nobody else was making any more, so you were just one of the crowd. Yeah. My heart was always in Nova Scotia, and of course we done reasonably well in Ontario. But after my wife died, I decided to come home.
I'm Peter Kroll. I live in the town of Yarmouth, but I grew up in the community of East Kemptville. And culturally, I'd say I identify as, a descendant of planters, loyalists, Acadians, basically. Sure, I come from very old Yarmouth County families. We've been here about 9 generations. I work as an archivist for the municipality of Argyll in Tuscot, and for many years was in charge of the museum there, which is Canada's oldest courthouse, and our new archives that was built in 2005.
All right.
I was very eager to move away when I was young. I think I left when I was about 17, and went to school primarily in Vancouver, and lived in Vancouver for about 10 years. And to be perfectly honest, really came back to Yarmouth County because of the, not opportunities here, there were very few at the time, but because of the depressed real estate market, and it was possible to buy a home here. Not as much.
No.
As, I'm more in favor of an overall and more inclusive approach to heritage. And I'm not a very big fan of these theme celebrations. I think the things that are happening in Canada 150 should be happening all the time.
Oh, okay.
I was born in New Brunswick. I only have one sister. She's 10 years older than I, because she was born before the war and I was born after. And our father was overseas for 6 years during the war. He left when she was about 3, came back when she was almost 10. So there were no children then. So there just ended up to be the 2 of us. She was like a third parent to me. What else? I went to Acadia University where I met my husband, who was from Yarmouth, and we ended up back here in 1973. I was the organist at Beacon United Church for many years. I studied music at university. Let me see, I first started at Zion as organist and then went to Beacon. And that job ended. Yeah, I moved here before anything was on Stars Road. There was the big farm in the hill there that they took away. They took the hill away and the farm got... I heard he was at Trefry. He got a fortune for that land that the mall was built on. So I remember when Zeller's opened, and now it's gone. Any shopping was downtown. I remember a lot of the old stores.
My name is Ray Zink. I live in Wellington in Yarmouth County. Lived there, own a house for about 40 years, and came here to work in Yarmouth in 1971. I'm not originally from Yarmouth County, but I'm a long-time resident and very pleased to be here. It's a wonderful place to live, and obviously it's a place that I chose to live and to stay, rather than just being born here by accident and remaining here. So I think that speaks well of Yarmouth County and all of Western Nova Scotia. And I've worked here in radio, broadcasting for about 45 years, now retired. I'm originally from Lunenburg County, raised, educated in Lunenburg County in a place called La Have on the western shore of the mouth of the La Have River. A very small community, and I guess that's one of the attractions that brought me to Yarmouth, knowing that this was a fairly small rural area. And so where I moved from to eventually Yarmouth seemed to make sense in terms of the cultural shift and all of that. I was offered a job at CJLS Radio back in July of 1971, a long time ago. And so a job brought me here, and I worked on the news end of broadcasting in radio journalism for about 45 years. And as I said, I retired in 2016. So it's been a long journey here. And because of my job, very involved in the community. There probably isn't a mayor or a council or a school board member or public official that I haven't interviewed or spoken with in the last 45 years. So it's a job that certainly gives you an opportunity to really get to know your community, and I think I've been very fortunate and very pleased to have done that, to have that experience, that opportunity to meet so many people and to do stories, to interview people, to basically be the conduit between the community event and those who are listening at the other end, to see how their community is operating and bring some of the people from the community to the doorsteps and to the living rooms and the kitchens of Yarmouth County. That was basically my job.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Well, there are many. I've got to tell you, one of the first fondest memories that I have of Yarmouth, a couple of days after I arrived here in 1971, didn't know anyone. No one knew who I was, and I needed a place to live. I found an advertisement for an apartment, went to see the landlord, and was very nervous when I walked in, thinking, I've got to have this apartment, I've got to have a place to live. And I asked him if I could rent the apartment, how much it was, and all he asked me was a 3-word question: got a job? And I said yes, and he said, well, you've got the apartment. Didn't ask where I was working, didn't ask any details other than whether I was working and had the ability, I guess, to pay the rent. That told me that it was a very small town, friendly place, and that kind of image, that kind of impact on me initially remained with me for the rest of my life. It was an incredible experience, a very small, minor event, but one that was overwhelming in terms of the kindness and the generosity and the trust that was shown to me with so little input into the community at that point. Like I say, I was brand new here in the area, and it was just one of those things that worked out very, very well. And I think that kind of friendliness, that kind of honesty, direct approach remained with me in terms of how I performed my job over the next 4.5 decades here in Yarmouth. It was a situation where I had to gain the trust of a lot of people to elicit information from them. Sometimes they didn't want to give. So you had to have an honest, open approach to these people, and an honest and open approach in telling the story as best as one could. And I think that initial impact on me in terms of the openness and the welcoming that I received here in Yarmouth County remained with me and formed part of the style as a reporter for the rest of my life here in Yarmouth. So it was a wonderful launching point for me to simply encounter this one individual, and didn't grill me about who I was or why I wanted the apartment, and gave me the apartment, and it worked out very well for 4.5 decades until I moved out shortly after that and bought a home, of course. Married a local girl and raised 2 girls in the community who are back in the community working here. So it's sort of all in the family in terms of wanting to stay, I guess, in Yarmouth County. It tells me that as a family, Yarmouth County has been very good to us, and we continue to live here and enjoy it. Well, it means a tremendous amount to me. In Wellington, one of the few people that has a flagpole probably for the last 30 to 40 years, fly the Canadian flag every day. I've taught my grandchild, my grandson, Matthew, the value of the flag, the symbolism of that flag, what it stands for. I've also been very fortunate in my work to cover many war veteran stories in the past, have seen the sacrifices to give us the country that we have today, and to see all the celebrations that go on for the 150th is absolutely essential. It's wonderful to see. I think it's so important for people my age, but also for my 5-year-old grandson to grow up in a culture of pride in country and knowing who we are. And we can only do that if we celebrate events like this together. I think it's going to be steady as she goes. I think we know the path. I think we know the right things to do. I think our heritage to the sea will always remain a strong point. Obviously, that's promoted in our tourism literature. It's who we are. I think that protection, that development of that kind of culture and history that we have will remain and will continue to be presented to the world as it should be. I think the rich heritage history that we have will remain, and again an overused term, will remain anchored as a hallmark of who we are into the future, for future generations to understand who we are. So in that way, I don't think there will be a seismic change in Yarmouth in its future. I think that the rich history we have brought into the present, and we will extend that into the future. Of course, there will be changes in business, there will be changes in technology, but I think that the rural charm of who we are in Yarmouth will never change, and I think, good for us. I don't think it should change. I think we are wonderful as we are, and we should extend that into the future.
Yarmouth County Museum and Archives recognizes the support of the Province of Nova Scotia. We are pleased to work in partnership with the Department of Communities, Culture and Heritage to develop and promote our cultural resources for all Nova Scotians.